Hello. I decided to call these videos Transmissions from the Bone because bones are the deepest, the final structure, and the things that I have to share and the things that I have to share, I feel in my bones. I know it in my bones. In shamanic work, the bone shaman woman is the woman that is an archetype. She helps us uncover those parts of us that are the deepest, the ones that are the most hidden, the ones that are the most buried, and also the ones that are potentially lost altogether. We connect with the bone shaman woman in soul retrieval work. So I've come up with this title, The Transmissions from the Bone. So this will probably be a longish video, and I do have quite a few notes because if I let myself go, I'll run amok, and I really want to get to the point because your time is your greatest resource. And if you're going to take time to stay with me, I want you to hear the authentic truths. So this video is about shadow work. You may already know what it is. I do find that it bears repeating, it bears going deeper. I've even noticed that even preparing for this video, even doesn't matter that I do shadow work with myself, on myself, with my clients, with my loved ones who ask for that kind of support. And still, even just preparing for this video was really helpful. So I do want this video to be helpful to you, whether you're a really seasoned shadow worker. How do I put this, right? Whether you're really, really comfortable with going into the shadows, or if you're new at it, or if you're somewhere in between. But please do feel free to ask questions in the comments. It does help me understand what you appreciate about this, what might be a little too simple. Again, I really don't want to waste your time or mine, right? So if there's ever a time to do shadow work, it's right now. We see the collective shadow everywhere. We see the division, there's violence, I mean, horrible things are happening. And a lot of them are the result of the shadow in individuals that has not been worked, that has not been met, that has not been acknowledged. People are just kind of running amok and acting it out. So I see a lot of people talk about doing shadow work, but they actually aren't. Now, I say this with so much love. I really do. I know how difficult it is to actually do the challenging work, to work with the dark aspects of yourself. So when I say, oh, people aren't actually doing it, it's a lot of times it's because they don't know they're not doing it. They think they are, they want to, right? And so this is partly why I chose to do this video, even though lots like it already probably exist. I haven't looked, but I do see, let's say, this kind of sub section of the population that I'm talking about, people who encounter their shadow, they find something shadowy within themselves, something difficult, something challenging, something they're not entirely aware of, right? And just because they encounter it is where they say, oh, I do shadow work. And a lot of times they don't actually work through these revelations, these awarenesses, these dark aspects, or the light aspects that they're avoiding, which I'll get to in a second. I will say this more than once in this video, but let's just get the foundation down. Shadow work without nervous system integration will not stick. Shadow work without nervous system integration is not going to stick. I will get into what that looks like, what that integration means, but just so you know, encountering and working through are completely different things. They are related, of course, but they're not the same thing. And in order to really rework your shadow, which is why else would you want to right? Why else would you want to encounter your shadow and do shadow work if you're not there to change something, to rework something? So you actually need to uh, integrate it and work through your nervous system with it. Just turning off my AC. Yeah. I do want to say that all of what I'm saying here, the rest of the video, pertains to both the dark shadows and what have been called the golden shadows. You would think that you wouldn't avoid the magical stuff, your gifts, your empowered self, all this, amazing stuff that we all have, but we do. We avoid the good stuff. The golden shadow takes just as much awareness and integration as the dark shadow work, and maybe even more, because I think we're actually all immensely afraid of how powerful we really are. Like, if we wanted to, we could probably manifest things instantly. You just think it and it shows up. But think about it, right? If you're like, I want $1 million, I don't know, this is what people think right away, right? And then you open up your bank account and there's an extra $1 million in there. Would you not panic right then and there and go, what happened? How did it happen? Why did right? You would. I would. I would be like, this is a mistake. Oh, that's funny. I just said that and then it showed up. But I mean, that's not my money, right? We're afraid. We're afraid of how powerful we are. So the golden shadow takes just as much work. So everything I'm saying pertains to both. So, shadow work does not need to be dramatic, does not need to be enormous, does not need to be grand. And in fact, and I'll give you an example later, it happens most often in the quietest moments, in between things, in between thoughts. And as you get better at finding those nuances of when your shadow shows up, it happens really quick. You don't need a ton of time. You don't need to sit there and sob on the sidewalk for 6 minutes or, you know, um, anyway, you know what I'm saying. Huge epiphanies are nice. When they happen, you're like, oh, I can't believe I didn't see this. But they're rare and they're not a prerequisite. They're not required. They'll happen once in a while. But again, shadow work really happens in those little pockets. And again, I will share an example in a little bit. I also want to share some general guidelines on how to actually do shadow work. Now, this is not meant to be an extensive treatment because your time is valuable, and this is a valuable subject. But I'd rather break this up into smaller chunks, rather, than trying to kind of fit it all in and overwhelm you. Because again, nervous system, right? If you are taking the time to take in this material, which, kudos, not for me, for you, right? This is deep stuff. And I go quite deeply on this because it requires a nuanced awareness. So I will share some general guidelines on how to do it in this video. And first, I want to share with you, where is that shadow hiding? How do you notice it? How do you find it in yourself? Right? Where is this shadow, right? Is it in your armpit? Like where, what's going on? So, and this is not meant to be an exhaustive list, but here's some, right? Some big stuff. You're gonna know what I'm talking about. You're gonna recognize it right away. First of all, in any kind of compulsions or addictions, even the ones that are socially sanctioned, you're scrolling and any kind of drinking, any kind of, you understand, whether they are mild, whether they are deep, whether they are entrenched, your shadow is hiding there. Anytime you encounter any kind of resistance in yourself, like, it would be better for you not to have sugar today or this week or whatever or ever, and you overdo it anyway, right? There was shadow at work there that you didn't want to look at. I'm saying it like it is. This is not meant to be a judgment. I am human as well. I will share with you an example of one of the biggest shadows that I've been working through for myself lately, and you'll see we're all in it, right? I scroll on my phone a little too much sometimes as well, so I understand, right? And this is where honesty is really, really needed. Um, Another realm where your shadow shows up is in your dreams. There's a few potential scenarios, and again, I would need more context and an actual dream to say whether there was shadow there or not. But here are a couple of aspects. If you have a close family member that shows up in your dreams over and over and over, like your mother, your father, your siblings, there is shadow being revealed to you through the dream, through some archetypal stuff coded in the dream that needs to be looked at. Any kind of nightmares are very often representations of some kind of shadow that needs to be seen. It's not literal. So if you're, falling off a building or, that kind of thing, it's not the shadow that you're afraid you're gonna kill yourself, right? Or it's not the shadow that, um, oh, you're afraid someone's gonna, drop you off a building, or you have a memory of somebody falling. It's not that literal. Okay, but nightmares do reveal and bring to you opportunities to look at something that is shadow related. Often nightmares actually conceal the golden shadow too. It's really an interesting paradox. Um, so if you are light-skinned, but you dream of a dark-skinned person of your gender. So if I or when I dream of a dark-skinned woman, that is an indication that some kind of shadow is being shown to me. It doesn't work the other way. It's because of the dark and light, right? We associate darkness, we associate shadow with a darker color, right? Okay, other areas where shadow shows up. When you're relating to someone, whether it's a friend, a family member, this is not in dreams, now we're in waking life. Your partner, your children, and you feel strong emotion, something challenging. I'm not talking about, intense love. That could also potentially conceal some shadow or reveal some shadow, but I'm talking about, somebody says something to you or gives you a look or, something happens, right? And you're churning somehow on the inside. There's shadow there. If you want to avoid something that's actually good for you, positive for you, even stuff that like maybe it'll even feel really good, but you're avoiding it. You're like, oh no, I need to clean the whatever, or I need to pay my bills first, or I have 70 other things to do before, um, I can do that good thing, right? There's shadow there. And conversely, whenever you choose to continue to endure something that's detrimental, that's bad for you, that's painful, if you're like, yeah, I know he abuses me, but he's a good guy, right? There's shadow hanging there. There's shadow hiding there, right? And that's just kind of the biggest one. There's so many other things that we do to ourselves that are actually detrimental that we keep doing, including relating to food, relating to those addictions. Okay, the last one on my list, again, not the final thing, but the last one here is anytime you are feeling judgmental of someone, or even if you're wanting to like tell people what they should do or how they should do it, or that they're doing something wrong, that, anytime you want to kind of meddle, right? And again, saying this with love, because these are really deep nuances, right? I could probably have 30 or 40 more on this list, but hopefully you get the idea, right? Any ways that you are hiding from yourself, this is not going to be one of those where you're sitting on the couch and you're like, I'm in resistance, I'm in resistance, right? It's going to be more like, I don't feel like going, right? Or, well, that lady might be there. I don't want to see her, something like that. Or I'm too tired to go for a walk today, and you're not actually too tired. It's just one of those things you've learned to keep saying, right? A lot of times we're not actually tired when we say we're tired. It's just like a catch-all phrase that really kind of means I don't know how I'm feeling and leave me alone. Okay, let's move on to the general guidelines of how to actually do shadow work. And again, this is not meant to be exhaustive. And because I'm not walking you through your specific shadow work, these are going to seem a little bit general, but hopefully they're still useful. I have a whole page of notes on this. So once you've encountered a spot, you've acknowledged, like, okay, I think I'm dealing with a shadow area here. It's important to, if there's a feeling, allow the feeling to arise. Try not to judge the feeling or say, well, I'm acting like a child, or, this is stupid, or yeah, I already know what this is about, right? If you can avoid doing that and instead just allow it to come up, just allow yourself to feel it. And once you've felt it, see if you can name what's coming up. By naming it, you are pulling it out of your unconscious. It stops being this nebulous discomfort, right? And you don't have to name it fully or fully unpack it and fully explain it and fully understand it. Just name the basic energy that's arising. My later example is going to help you see what I mean with that. Once you do name it and you have a safe space and you have time maybe later, journaling about it or talking about it can be really helpful. Not because you want to dwell in that old story and like reignite all of those old neural pathways, not for that reason, but because you have the opportunity to feel into and then tease apart the still hidden beliefs. There's usually so many kind of layers that we carry. You might have named one, but there might be several stories and several traumas and several beliefs kind of all layered on top of each other. And so journaling about it and just kind of like really, what was that really about? Like, what was I really feeling? Right. And again, not to go into okay, this feeling right here, pinpoint, right? Or this list of feelings. The point isn't to try to find the right answer, right? Some of you who are perfectionists might fall into that trap of going, oh, I have to find the right feeling. When as soon as I was saying I will, like, what am I really feeling? I could feel you perfectionists going, oh, I have to find that feeling, the right one. So it's not about that. It's not about that. It's about teasing apart the stuff that is still unnamed. Like, you did a great job by pulling on that one thread. You found the thread, right? And then you can kind of pull at it some more and unravel it more deeply if and when you have time, or if and when you make time. So the other piece about this is that this is not about pushing away the old story. This is not about saying, oh, this old story is dumb and it's not serving me and I just want to release it and I just want it gone, right? The more you resist it, the more it's going to keep hammering at you for attention. But once you do find that story, right, you realize, oh, I'm afraid I'm going to be broke, right? I'm afraid I'm going to be hungry, right? You may want to lovingly, right, like literally touch your body, hold your body, have someone hold you, but it's really important that you can do this for yourself as well. And then thank that story. We thank the ego because the ego really has developed a lot of protective things. Thank that story. Just go, okay, I know what you've been doing. I know why you're here. I know what you've been here for all these decades or years or however long. Thank you for being here. I'm going to shift this now, right? You thank it. You may need to do this repeatedly because think about how often you as a child were neglected, were denied, were pushed away. You tried to do something really exciting and you were tamped down by your parents. It doesn't just take one act of, oh, I love you, right, to shift that, right? It takes your inner child is waiting to really trust that you are really there for her or him. And the other piece is hugely, hugely important. Do not miss this part. I will hammer at you about it. Naming is just the beginning. It is just step one. Again, I'm repeating the thing I said I was going to repeat a lot. Shadow work without nervous system integration is not going to work. It's just not. So for shadow work to be effective, I'll put this in the positive now, right? For shadow work to actually be effective, for it to actually change something inside you, to rewire, rework, you have to do something different from the familiar story. Something different. What that could look like is, let's say you catch yourself, like in my example, I caught myself in a scarcity moment. You tune into what do you want to be? How do you want to be reacting or responding or feeling in that moment? And choose that. Choose that. Actually feel it. Don't just say it. Affirmations are not going to work with this one. You can't just say, okay, I'm rich, I'm rich, I'm rich, I'm rich, I'm rich. Money's coming to me. It's not going to work if you don't feel it. Now you can go, I'm rich. And then two, you see how I just dropped in? I'm like, I'm rich. And feel the richness. That's an affirmation that works. Okay. So now I kept promising you a personal example, but I wanted to lay out the foundations first. So let's do the example. Let me tell you. Um, Scarcity is one of those areas that I have had to do some very, very deep shadow work with lately and basically my whole life, but I didn't actually know I wasn't doing the shadow work. So remember how earlier I was saying how a lot of times you'll encounter this aspect of yourself when you think you're doing shadow work. That was me. I was like, oh, this is shadow. Yay, I'm doing shadow work. Look at me. But I never actually reworked it. I never did the nervous system part. I never did the shift on the inside. Anyway, I was born in the former Soviet Union. My grandparents managed to escape the Holocaust. They escaped to Siberia for several years. So I've been woven and laden with scarcity, ancestral traumas, everything's around. There's not enough. There's never enough. Someone's always coming to take it away. You're going to be persecuted because you have anything when somebody else has nothing. Right? So do you see how deep this is? You can't possibly rework this in a day, right? I think it's one of my kind of paths on this in this lifetime, one of my big, big things to rework. It's an ongoing process, right? And yeah, you can't do this all at once. We are limited by our biology, right? Like you can make shifts, you can access 5D consciousness, all the things. But you have a nervous system that is made up of cells, and these cells need time to send in their building blocks and rework their pathways and connections. And there are lots of things that help with that, lots and lots. There are many, many, many tools for nervous system integration work. Breath work is one of them. Neuro art is something that I've recently been studying so deeply and realizing how powerful it is. Yoga and any kind of intentional movement, somatic work, somatic therapy. There's so many different ways, as long as it's consciously linked to the thing that you're reworking, right? You can't just go to a body worker and say, rework my nervous system to abundance, right? It doesn't work like that. So one example I'll tell you is I was walking in my neighborhood and I know that there is a few blocks away there is a house that has an apple tree. And that apple tree I had recently passed by, and it was full of apples. It's end of August. They're ripe, they're ready, and they're literally just falling to the ground, and the house owners don't care. They're not eating the apples, they're not gathering them, they're just letting them fall and rot. And apples are so expensive. They're like absurdly expensive. Tell me you agree with me. I saw this in New York State. It's the same in Colorado. So expensive. So I'm passing by this apple tree and I'm like, oh my gosh, they don't care about these apples. I'm just gonna like gather a few. Some of them that had like just fallen to the ground. They're still fresh. They're still like intact. Right. So I got 2 or 3 apples. I brought them home. They're so amazing. It's like organic apples, nobody sprayed with anything, right? And when we finished those 2, 3 apples, I was like, I want to go again. Right. I want to go see if there's more. I want to go see if, maybe I can gather some more. On my walk to this house, it was just like I said, a few blocks away. So, I had like a good 10 minutes. I caught one of those shadow moments. I caught one of those scarcity mentality energies. I was in the energy of grasping. I wasn't in the energy of, man, I would love a couple more of those apples. They are so delicious. They are so good. I wasn't in that energy at all. I was in the energy of how many apples can I get? How many apples can I get away with? Right? Are they going to see me if I pull a few from the tree directly and I don't just take them from the ground? Right? I was in scarcity. I was in grasping and clinging, and I had that, that thing, right? If you have scarcity stories, you understand what I'm talking about. And this is vulnerable. Like this is the stuff, right? But I felt like without a personal example, it's harder to relate to the nuance of how this comes up. So I wasn't walking and churning. I wasn't walking and going, ooh, how many apples can I, I wasn't like, oh, I wonder if they're gonna like be mad at me or, I was like, if you looked at me from the outside, I'm just walking or, walking along. It's a nice morning and I just look like a person, it, but on the inside, I caught this where it wasn't even any one particular thought. It was just I caught the feeling, and I was like, oh, I'm grasping right here, right now. I'm grasping. And I still had a few minutes to go, and I mean, I could have stopped too, and and I was like, I'm changing this right now. Right here and right now, I'm making the shift. And so the shift was, if those apples are meant for me, right? So let me back up for a second and just say what I'm naming initially are thoughts, right? What I'm naming initially is, how do I want to be thinking about this, right? So the thoughts are, if those apples are meant for me, they will be there. I will easily gather some. That's a thought. Another thought is, spirit will provide me with whatever I need. I want to, I want to trust that. And I should trust that. And right, those. So it's a start. You start with, and I started with thoughts, but then I went in and I felt it. So rather than the I'm rich, I'm rich, I'm rich, I'm rich, right? It was the drop in. It was the drop in and go, I trust. I trust spirit. I trust for those apples to be there if they're meant for me. And if they are not meant for me, I will be fine. Nothing will happen, Again, I'm saying things with words, which has to do with the mental realm. But I'm also, if you saw me, my eyes were closed. I was going in and I was doing that while walking. I was going, okay, this is where right here, right now, not later, not at some other point, not when I'm journaling, not when I get to tell about this to somebody. Right here, right now, I'm going to feel the trust. I'm going to feel it. and I felt it, and I felt it, and I realized I am not going to let myself get to that tree until I've rewired this, or at least kind of created some new pathways to rewire this. So I hope that this makes sense. I hope that you understand what I'm saying and what I'm transmitting here. Once I made that shift in myself, I got to the apple tree. I got a few apples. It was easy. And I felt very, very different. Not because I got the apples, you understand. I felt very different because I had chosen to kind of catch and understand. Oh, remember how I said you don't need to go into the full explication of what's going on. It was enough for me in that moment to just say, oh, I'm in a scarcity story. Oh, this is the scarce, this is just kind of the label I have for this particular knot that I'm working through, right? I'm in a scarcity story. And then you do the work. And I say touching your body in some way is really, really helpful. A lot of times just putting your hands on your heart because it's your center is so helpful. And it's helpful in rewiring as well because you're reminding yourself you have a body. You're reminding your brain, that's where your neural connections are and vagus nerve and all the good stuff. And if you are someone who deals with scarcity issues, I came up with such a fun metaphor I want to share with you. I call it the dish soap conundrum. So imagine you are wanting to cook the most incredible dinner, exquisite, right? You want to make 6 or 7 dishes and side dishes, and you want to garnish, and you want to, right, like special spices, and you just want to go all out. You want to create this tremendous meal. And maybe you do some planning for that meal. Maybe you start writing down, okay, I want to make this, I want to make this, I want to make this, right? But then very soon after, you become preoccupied with, do I have enough dish soap to wash the dishes after the meal? Like, I'm going to cook all this stuff up. It's going to be like a bunch of dishes, right? Do I have enough dish soap? Should I go buy more? How much should I get? Should I go now? Should I go ahead of time? Are they going to have it in stock? Are they going to have the kind that I want? Sure. What kind should I get? And you go in there, right? Purposely fleshing this out for you because it's so crazy. But this is what we do. So you understand where I'm going with this, right? Your life is the exquisite meal, is the thing you want to cook up, is the thing you want to create. We are creating our lives. We're creating from our core into our experience, into our existence, onto this path. And then you get preoccupied with, how am I going to do the dishes, right? Do I have enough stuff? So dish soap representing money. Not a perfect metaphor, but I think you understand. The point being is how absurd it is, right? That when you're thinking about, when you're planning, you're so excited you can practically smell the food that you're making already. You could see it, you could see the vibrant colors. And instead of staying with that, instead of staying with the life creation that you want to bring forth, you start being preoccupied with, do I have enough money? Where's the money coming from? How come this person has all this money and I don't? Or how did they get it? Well, they must have been handed all that dish soap, you know. So I thought it was so cool. I am still chuckling over it because it actually really does help to express kind of how crazy things get in there, in our minds. So, in conclusion, there's way more to say, but I hope that you've gotten a lot out of this. Shadow work requires integration in order to actually rewire and change that part of you. I hope that my example was helpful. I would love to hear yours if you feel safe sharing them. I will read every single comment. I love hearing from anyone who actually makes it through my videos. Our shadows are often created when we're young, when we're really small, sometimes in utero, sometimes you're actually handed those shadows ancestrally, like I was telling you about my grandparents and my parents. But also when you're a child and there are parts of you that are unacceptable to the adults, where they've said, be quiet, right? Stop dancing around so much. Stop singing so loud, right? All this stuff where you were creating this exquisite meal, right? You were creating this incredible energy and you were told to shut up in some way. You know, you were beaten, you were abused, or you were just, your parents said children should be seen and not heard, right? And you just closed your throat chakra all the way, right? You buried it. So whatever you bury becomes your shadow, even if it's singing out loud. What's at the core is often connected to a young part of you that's still waiting for love and acceptance. This is also why that physical contact with yourself, with your heart, with your, you know, if you want to hug yourself, whatever it is, if you do EMDR, if you do any kind of tapping, right, any kind of reminder to your body that you are safe, that part of you still needs love and acceptance. That's why we can't push away the shadow and just say, oh, it's shadow, it's stupid, it doesn't make sense. You know, like your 5-year-old might be saying, hey, I'm going to be in trouble for this. I can't, yeah. And then you say to yourself, well, that's dumb. I'm not going to be in trouble. I'm an adult. But that inner 5-year-old in you still needs you to say, I love you. You're not in trouble. I got this, right? It may seem a little awkward at first, but it's profound. It really works, especially if you can acknowledge and understand, like, wow, the part of me that's freaking out right now is like 7 or 5, or if you can kind of feel into it and you feel like you're so young. You just literally, you take the adult you and you bring it into inside and you say, I got this, honey. Everything's okay. So, shadow work is a huge part of my Sacred Dream Alchemy portal, which is my 3-month program that uses all kinds of amazing tools. I do use a lot of dream interpretation, shamanic journeying, and lots and lots of nervous system integration for shadow work. For shadow aspects, I guide people to pinpointing some of their main ones, main shadow stories, or just shadow aspects, golden shadow or dark shadow, all of it, and actually helping people rewire. So tell me, what did I miss? What did I miss in this video? I would love to hear from you. How is your shadow work going? And until next time, lots of love.